Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome back to Of Dice and Third Baseman. Once again this afternoon, we'll be jumping into the World Series time machine. This time we're headed back to a legendary World Series, the 1970 contest between the Baltimore Orioles of the American League and the Cincinnati Reds of the National League. The 1970 Orioles won 108 games under the guidance of Earl Weaver. They won the American League by 15 games over the Yankees, and they cantered to the pennant. They were 7.5 games up in the division by Memorial Day and 10 games clear by mid-August, and then they swept aside the Twins in the ALCS by an aggregate score of 27-10 over the 3 games. As befits a 108-win team, they were among the class of the league on both sides of the ball. They led the American League in runs scored, despite a home park that slightly favored pitching. By combining in classic Earl Weaver style, power, they were third in home runs. With patience, they were first in walks by a wide margin. And on the pitching side of the equation, they were among the stingiest in the league in hits, homers, and walks allowed. Cuellar and McNally each won 24 games, with Palmer chipping in 20, and those 3 men combined to start 119 of their 162 games. The relief pitching, to the extent they needed it, as they led the league with 60 complete games, and Boston was second with only 38, was good enough, led by Reichert's 1.98 ERA and 13 saves, as part of a split closer duty with Eddie Watt. The Reds won 102 games behind Sparky Anderson, and they had an even easier route to the National League pennant. They led the NL West for all but one day of the regular season and were 10 games up as early as the second week of June. They then held the Pirates to 3 runs in 3 games to sweep the NLCS. This team was the warning shot for the arrival of the Big Red Machine. All the pieces were not in place yet. Joe Morgan was still in Houston and George Foster was still in San Francisco. But Concepcion and Gullett became regular contributors in 1970, and they won 13 more games than they had the year prior. They were known for their offense, which led the National League in homers and batting average, behind Bench's first MVP season, and 4 other regulars who were at least 25% better than league average with a stick. But the pitching staff was greatly improved from prior seasons. They now had 5 starters of roughly league average quality or better, and a 3-man bullpen that Sparky used relentlessly, pitching in about 175 games and amassing almost 50% more saves than the next highest total in the National League. Today is Saturday afternoon, the 10th of September 1970, and Riverfront Stadium is just about ready for the first pitch. It's a pleasant afternoon in the River City, with temps in the low 60s. So let's head out to the ballpark and meet the starting lineups. The Orioles will send out Don Buford in the leadoff spot, playing left. Paul Blair will bat second and play center field. Boog Powell bats third and plays first base. Frank Robinson bats cleanup and plays right field. Brooks Robinson will bat fifth and play third base. Elrod Hendricks is the catcher. Davey Johnson is the second baseman. Mark Belanger is the shortstop. And on the mound will be Jim Palmer, the 24-year-old right-hander, who went 20-10 on the season in 305 innings with a 2.71 earned run average. For the homestanding Cincinnati Reds, they will have Pete Rose leading off in right field, Bobby Tolan in center, Tony Perez at third, National League MVP Johnny Bench behind the plate, Lee May at first, Bernie Carbo in left, Tommy Helms at second base, Woody Woodward at short, and on the mound, 21-year-old right-hander Gary Nolan, who won 18 games with a 3.27 earned run average. It looks from up here in the press box like the players are ready to get the ball game started. So let's head down to the field for Game 1 of the 1970 World Series. Leading it off for the Orioles in the first inning will be the left fielder, Don Buford. .467 against a right-handed pitcher. And that's a bouncer to second. That'll be a routine play for Tommy Helms. And there's one away for the Orioles. So we get underway here at Riverfront Stadium, which it just opened in June of 1970. Blair, 528. Johnny Bench, and that's no passed ball here. 641. And that's a bouncer to first base, which will be handled unassisted by Lee May, and there's two away. And Boog Powell steps in, and that's a 531. Hit again to May. And hit sharply, but no problem. And two unassisted putouts in a row for the Cincinnati first baseman, and the Orioles get no runs on no hits, and they leave nobody in the first inning. And Cincinnati will get their first crack at the young Baltimore right-hander Jim Palmer. And the switch hitting Pete Rose will step in. 316 on the regular season. 359, and that's bounced to second. Up with it is Johnson and over to first. One away. And Bobby Tolan is next. 423 against a right-handed pitcher. That's a base hit for the Fleet center fielder. He dances menacingly off first, but he's going nowhere. And Tony Perez will stand in. 132, that's a 332, and Tony is caught looking. Strike three on the inside corner, and Palmer gets his first strikeout. And here's the dangerous Johnny Bench. The 22-year-old catcher hit 45 home runs and knocked in 148 runs during the regular season. That's a 418 against a righty. Bench bounces that on the ground to shortstop. Belanger will flip to Davy Johnson to follow the short route. And the Reds are retired. They get no runs on a hit, and they leave a man. And we're through an inning at Riverfront with no score. That'll bring up Frank Robinson in the 4-hole for the Orioles. 148. Frank with a big swing, but comes up empty for Nolan's first strikeout of the afternoon. There's one away. And Brooks Robinson stands in. 314. Brooks hits that well out to right field, but there'll be room in the park to hold it. Back goes Pete Rose, and he makes the catch in medium deep right field, and there's two away. And the catcher, Elrod Hendricks, come up for the Orioles with 2 outs and nobody on. 648. And that is a ground ball to second base. Helms over to May at first. And the Orioles go quickly and quietly in the second. So far, 6 up and 6 down for Baltimore. And we have no scores. We head into the bottom of the second here in Cincinnati. Lee May, the slugging first baseman, stands in. He hit 34 home runs during the regular season. 457 against a righty. And May drills that one down the left field line. And that's a fair ball, and we'll get into the corner for 2 bases. Lee will stop at second. And Cincinnati has the first threat of the ball game. And the runner at second and nobody out. And the dangerous Bernie Carbo stepping in. Palmer pitches, and that's hit out to Robinson in right field. Frank is there. He will make the catch. But May will tag at second and move up to third. And the Reds have a man at third base with only one out here in the bottom of the second. And it'll be up to Tommy Helms. See if he can get the run home. That's a 116. That's a 316 for Helms. And that's a little nubber on the infield. It gets past the mound out towards second base. And there'll be no play. It's an infield hit for Helms. And May scurries home with the first run of the game. Cincinnati takes the lead with the help of some brawn and a scratch hit. So Helms is at first, Woodward up at the plate, and one away. 2-26 against a righty, and that's hit sharply to Brooks Robinson. He will go to second for one. Johnson on to first. Double play. 5-4-3 around the horn. And Cincinnati's retired, but not before they get a run on 2 hits. And they leave no one. So Lee May's leadoff double turns into the first run of the ball game, and Cincinnati takes a 1-0 lead into the top of the third as Gary Nolan gets set to face Davy Johnson, the Orioles second baseman. 4-26 against a righty. That's hit well to shortstop, but right at Woodward, who will fling him out at first for the first out of the inning. And that brings up Belanger. 353. That's hit on the ground to second. Helms up with it, over to first for his third assist in 2 2/3 innings. And the Orioles get to the bottom of their order in Jim Palmer without yet having registered a base runner. The Oriole pitcher will stand in. That's a 640. And that's also hit on the ground. This time at Lee May, who will take it to the bag himself, and that's 9 up, 9 down for the Orioles, who have only hit one ball out of the infield the first time through the order. And Cincinnati will go to the bottom of the third with a 1-0 lead. And Gary Nolan will get his chance to swing the stick. 688 at home is a 698. And he will draw a walk. Palmer will not be happy about that. Not just a leadoff walk, but a poor hitting counterpart on the mound. And Pete Rose will step in. He grounded to second his first time up. 628 at home is a 638. And that's a can of corn to center field. Blair is there. He pounds his glove and he puts it away for the first out. Palmer now facing Tolan. 576. That's hit out to Buford. Buford on the run into the left center field gap, and he makes the catch. A nice play there by the Oriole left fielder to retire the dangerous Tolan, and Nolan scurries back to first. Perez digs in. He was caught looking his first time up. 632 at home is 642. And that's a bouncer down to first base. Fielded with no problem by Boog Powell. And he will step on the bag and wave Palmer away. And Cincinnati's retired. No runs, no hits. And a man left. And we're through 3 here at Riverfront Stadium in Game 1 of the 1970 World Series. Cincinnati holding a slim 1-0 lead in what's shaping up to be a pitcher's duel here in this October afternoon in Cincinnati. And Buford will stand in for the Orioles and see if he can get something going for the visitors. 117 is a 317. And that is hit out of the infield, but it's skied to left. Carbo is there, and he makes the grab. First out. And Paul Blair is up. He bounced unassisted to first his first time at the plate. 197, and Blair bloops that into right field for a base hit. So after 3 1/3 innings, the Orioles have their first base runner and their first hit. And Blair looks like he might try to get something going. Auto manager die as a 1. That's less than his steal of 5. So he will attempt to get a lead. Nolan's hold is a 6. So Blair needs 11 or better to get a lead, and he doesn't get a jump. So he's forced to cling to the bag at first, and that'll bring up Boog Powell. The pitch to the first baseman, 241 against a lefty. And that is skied to right. Rose will make the catch for the second out. Blair will dance off first again. This time he gets the 11 he needs, so he's going. He's a speed of 4. And bench is an arm of 7. So he needs a 13 or better to steal second. That's a 12, and he's gunned down by the MVP catcher. Caught stealing 2-4. And the Orioles are retired. No runs on a hit. And they leave nobody left after challenging Bench's arm. We go to the bottom of the 4th with the score still 1-0 Cincinnati. And Bench will lead off the bottom of the inning for the Reds. 5:46, and he hits that one out to Davy Johnson at second base. And it'll be out of Davy's reach, and it'll trickle into right field for a base hit. So Bench leads off the 4th with a base hit. His first hit of the game. Let's see what Hendricks is. Hendricks is an arm 5. And Bench is a speed 4. With the Reds leading, the auto manager says he will attempt to get a jump. His steal is 0, and Palmer's hold is not a very good 3, so Bench will need a 13 or better, and he's not going. So May will stand in. That's a 153, and that's a routine fly ball to left. That'll be put away by Buford. Bench dances off first again. Can't get the lead, so Carbo will swing the bat. 258 against a lefty, and that's skied to right. Couple of steps to his right goes Frank Robinson, and he'll put that away for out number 2. Bench still making some noise at first, like he wants to go against the substandard move of Jim Palmer. And that's a 16. Bench is going to try to get the lead here. He's a steal of 0. Sorry, he got the lead. He's going now. He's a speed of 4. Hendricks is an arm of 5. So Bench needs an 11 or better to steal second. And he's in there. So the Reds catcher steals second with 2 outs. And that'll give Tommy Helms a chance to plate another run just like he did in the second inning. Palmer kicks and deals, 659. At home, that's a 669. And that's tapped back to the mound. And that'll be a little difficulty for Palmer. He gloves it and tosses to first to retire Helms. And the Reds get no runs and a hit. And they leave a man in scoring position as Bench is left on second after the leadoff single and stolen base. And we're through 4 here at Riverfront. And the score is still Cincinnati 1, Baltimore 0. The Orioles will send up the heart of the order in the 5th. The Robinsons and then Elrod Hendricks. See if they can get something started against Gary Nolan, who's been untouchable so far. The pitch to Frank's a 337. And that is popped up in the infield. And Helms will range behind the bag at second and make... Oops. It's Frank. 337. Sorry about that. Hit to center. And well, but no problem for the center fielder Tolan, and he makes the catch. And that'll bring up Brooks. 648. And that's another ground ball in the infield. Helms scoops it up and flips it to first. And quick 2 outs again for Nolan. And Hendricks, who also grounded out to second his first time up, will stand in with 2 outs and nobody on for Baltimore. 554. That's hit down to Perez at third. Tony will glove it and chuck it over to first for the 3rd out of the inning. And for the 4th time in 5 frames, the Orioles go 1, 2, 3. And we're halfway through here in Cincinnati with no score. Nolan will be vulnerable to fatigue when we reach the 6th inning. But for now, he's throwing up a bunch of goose eggs, and Woody Woodward to lead it off for Cincinnati in the bottom of the 5th. 683 at home is a 693. And that's a leadoff walk for the Reds shortstop. And that'll bring up Nolan, and he will attempt to lay down a sacrifice. 3 and 6 and 7 is 13, and Nolan's bunt rating is a 19. And that's bunted down to the 3rd baseman. The only play will be at first. So the Reds pitcher does his job. It's a 5-3 sacrifice. And Woodward moves to second with 1 away. That'll give the Reds left fielder Pete Rose a chance at an RBI here with a runner at second and 1 away. 316. And Pete gets under that and hits it straight up in the air to center field. Be no problem for Paul Blair. And that's the 2nd out. And that'll bring up Tolan, who singled and was robbed of a hit on a nice running catch by Don Buford in the 3rd inning. 102 is a 302, strike 3 called. So Tolan takes the called 3rd strike. That's Palmer's 2nd strikeout of the game. Both of them looking. And the Reds go down. No runs on no hits, and they leave a man. And we go to the top of the 6th. Still only a single run on the board here at Riverfront. Davey Johnson grounded to short in the 3rd. 453 against a righty. Davey hits that one well, and that'll get inside the chalk down the left field line. And Johnson will make it into second with a double. Only the 2nd hit of the game for the Orioles, and their first runner in scoring position, and they do it with no outs. Unfortunately, with Belanger in the pitcher's spot coming up. Belanger looks to the 3rd base coach for the sign, but it doesn't look like they have the bunt on. It's a 401. And he draws a walk. So now the Orioles have 1st and 2nd and nobody out, and Palmer, and he will look to do the same thing Nolan did in the bottom half of the previous inning and lay it down. Got 11 and 2 is 13, and Palmer's bunt of 4 is a 17. And that's going to be bunted to the pitcher, and he might have a chance at a force. Nolan's arm is a 1. The base runners are Johnson with a speed of 3 and Belanger with an arm of 6. So Nolan could attempt the force at 3rd. He'd need a 12 or better. He's going to take the out. So it's a sacrifice, 1-3 for Palmer. And the runners move up into scoring position. So he looked at third, double clutched, and then flipped it to first to take the shore out. And now the Orioles have the tying and go-ahead runs in scoring position, but one out, and Buford at the plate. It's a 400, and that is ball 4. So real trouble for Nolan now. The bases are loaded. And the meat of the order about to come up for Baltimore. Johnson with a speed of 3 at third. Cincinnati's going to play the infield back. And Blair, 608. And he swings and misses. A huge strikeout for Gary Nolan. Down goes Blair with the bases loaded, unable to make contact. Second strikeout of the game for Blair. And it's all up to Boog Powell. Bases loaded, 2 men out, down by a run here in the 6th inning of Game 1 of the World Series. Nolan looks in at the dangerous, hulking left-handed batter for the Orioles, and he kicks and deals. 491 against a righty, and Powell hits it well to center field. Back goes Tolan, and he's going to have room to make the catch a few steps in front of the warning track. And that's it for the threat for the Orioles. They get no runs on 1 hit, and they leave 3 men on. And the Orioles look like they were about to turn the game around there in the 6th inning, but Nolan struck out Paul Blair and then got Powell to fly to center field with the bases loaded, and the Orioles failed to score. And we go to the bottom of the 6th inning with the score still 1-0 Cincinnati. Tony Perez will step in. He's 0 for 2 with a strikeout. 563. That's hit on the ground to Belanger. That'll be an easy play for the Orioles shortstop. Over to first for the out. And there's one away for the Reds. And Johnny Bench steps in. He's 1 for 2 with a steal today. The Reds only have 4 hits, but they got the one they needed, the infield hit by Helms in the 2nd that scored the game's only run. 420 to Bench against a righty, and he beats that into the ground to shortstop. Belanger again. Takes it one-handed and flips to first, and there's 2 away. And Lee May, who scored that run with a leadoff double, will step in. He's 1 for 2. 438. And carbon copy, another ground ball to Belanger, and the sure-handed shortstop of the Orioles makes no mistake. 3 up, 3 down for Cincinnati, all courtesy of Mark Belanger. And we're through 6 here at Riverfront Stadium. The score still Cincinnati 1 and the Orioles nothing. And Nolan has come back out again for the 6th inning. Probably at least face the right-handed batters unless he puts somebody on. That Frank Robinson will start it off. Frank is struck out swinging and fly deep to center. 625 plus 30 for fatigue is a 655. And that's another ground ball to shortstop. This time it'll be Woody Woodward. Toss it over to first for the first out of the inning, and Brooks stands in. He's flied to right and grounded to second. 451 against a righty. Swing and a miss. Nolan still got a little bit of a hop on the fastball. 3rd strikeout of the game, and down goes the Oriole third baseman. There's 2 away in the 7th. And Ellie Hendricks steps in. He's grounded to second and grounded to third. 142, that's a 342, And Hendricks hits that one slowly on the ground down the left field line. Third baseman Perez is up with it. He's over to first and not in time. Infield hit for Ellie Hendricks. And the Orioles have a base runner. And that'll bring Sparky Anderson out of the dugout. To have a chat with Gary Nolan. Even though Nolan has a shutout, Sparky's been known to have a quick hook. Well, this time there's a few encouraging words in the congregation at the mound, and Sparky's going to leave Nolan in to face Johnson. Johnson has the hardest hit ball of the game for Baltimore so far. He led off the sixth with a double. So Nolan will look in to bench, take the sign. Here's the pitch. 160, and that is a can of corn out into right field. Pete Rose will take a few steps in and to his left and make the catch, and Nolan escapes again. The Orioles get no runs on a hit, and they leave a man, but again, nobody comes close to crossing the plate, and we're into the seventh inning stretch here at Riverfront. And Cincinnati still leads by the narrowest of margins, the score 1-0. And Palmer will come out for the seventh inning, and he will face Bernie Carbo to lead it off for Cincinnati. .428, and that's a walk. Carbo draws a walk. That's the third of the game allowed by Palmer. All three of them have been to the leadoff batter. Carbo with a speed of 4 against Hendricks' arm of 5. He will attempt to get a lead. He needs a 12 or better to get a jump. He's not going. Helms will step in. It's a 5:35. That'll be hit down to Boog at first. And Boog will take it to the bag by himself. One away, but Carbo moves to second. That'll bring Woodward to the plate. He's hit into a 5-4-3 double play and drawn a walk. 138 is a 338, and that's hit hard to shortstop. Belanger looks the runner back at second, throws to first. There's 2 away. That brings up the pitcher's spot with 2 outs and a big run at second. And Sparky's going to go to the bench. You'll pinch hit for Nolan. With Ty Klein. And that means the Reds will get action up in the bullpen. Now Palmer stares in at the left-handed batter. And the windup in the pitch. 671 at home. That's a 681. And that's a base hit up the middle, and that'll score Carbo from second and double the Cincinnati lead. 2-0 Reds. So Sparky pulls the right string there. Clutch pinch hit RBI single for the veteran Ty Klein, and it's 2-0 for the home team, and Rose will stand in with a runner at first and 2 away. 489 against a righty. That is a line drive out to center. no problem for Blair, and he makes the last out of the inning, but it's one batter too late. Cincinnati gets a run on a hit, and they leave a man, and they extend their lead to 2-0 as we go to the top of the 8th, and we'll get our first look in this series at the Cincinnati bullpen. So the Orioles have the right-handed Belanger, the pitcher's spot, and the switch-hitting Buford up in the 8th. And Sparky looks at his options. And it's going to be Clay Carroll to pitch the 8th. Carroll pitched in 65 games in 1970 and had 16 saves, so he knows what he's doing in the late innings. And the Orioles have a decision to make here with Belanger leading off. Unfortunately, not great options once you take Belanger out of the lineup. But they're down 2 and they desperately need a run. So Terry Crowley will pinch hit for Belanger. And Chico Salmon with 0 range at shortstop will come in to play short in the bottom of the 9th. Sorry, the bottom of the 8th. Orioles need base runners by hook or crook here. And Carroll will look in at the pinch hitter Crowley. And the pitch. 235 against the lefty, and that's popped up near third base. Perez is over into foul ground where he makes the catch for the first out of the inning. And Earl will go to the bench again. And it'll be Merv Rettenmund to pinch hit for Palmer. And Carroll's delivery, 445 against a righty, and that's a base hit for Rettenmund. Just what the doctor ordered for the Orioles. They get a man on, and the tying run gets a chance to come to the plate in the person of Don Buford. Carroll takes the sign and delivers. 447 against a righty. That's a fly ball to center. Should be routine for Tolan. That's the second out of the inning. And I'll give Paul Blair a crack. 276 against a righty. And that's hit on the ground to shortstop, and that'll be right at Woodward. And he'll make the easy play to first base. And the Orioles are retired, no runs on a hit, and they leave a man. And we go to the bottom of the 8th. Cincinnati up by 2. And the Orioles will need a new pitcher. And they'll have the lefty Tolan, the righty Perez, and the righty Bench. The righty Dick Hall come out of the Baltimore bullpen. And Carroll will be subject to fatigue in the ninth if he comes back out. So Hall in the game for the Orioles, and he has to face Tolan, Perez, and Bench in the Cincinnati eighth. 219 against a lefty, and that's a base hit. Tolan takes advantage of the platoon differential and spanks a base hit into right field, and Cincinnati has a leadoff man on. Tolan's speed of 5 against Hendricks' arms of 5, so he gets a chance to go for the lead. He's 7 against a 7, so he needs a 10 or better. Does not get it. Hall manages to keep him somewhat close to the bag at first, and that'll bring up Perez. 234 against a righty. And it's a 584, and that'll be hit out to Blair. And that'll be an easy play for the rangy Orioles center fielder, so there's one down. Tolan will dance off first again. This time he gets the 10 he needs, and he's going. He's a speed of 5 against an arm of 5, so 10 or better, and it's a stolen base. 12, and he's in there. Second steal of the game for the Reds. And they now have a man in scoring position with 1 out and Johnny Bench at the plate. So Hall is going to elect to pitch around Bench. But it won't matter on a 533. That's hit to Boog. That'll be an unassisted play at first, and Bench moves the man over to third with 2 away. And Lee May with a chance to add another run to the Cincinnati lead. Hall kicks and delivers. 328, and his swing and a miss. Hall strikes out May on the off-speed pitch. His first strikeout, and Cincinnati's retired with no runs on a hit and a man left on third. And we go to the top of the ninth, last ups for the Baltimore Orioles, and they trail Cincinnati by a score of 2-0. And Sparky's going to come to the mound again. And Wayne Granger will come on to pitch the ninth. Clay goes 1 inning. Granger pitched in 67 games and had 35 saves during the regular season, so he's used to this sort of situation. But he'll have to face Powell and the Robinsons here to get through the ninth. The righty delivers. 594. That's hit out to Pete Rose in right field. Pete is there. He will make the grab. 1 down. That brings up Frank Robinson. He's 0 for 3 with a strikeout. Granger delivers. It's a 694. And that's ball 4. And once again, the Orioles get the tying run up to the plate. This time in the person of Brooks Robinson. 664. Oh, sorry. Granger's vulnerable fatigue. And that's a walk, so he's a 1. So that's a 664, and 10 is 674. And that matters here because he drills Brooks in the ribs, and the Orioles suddenly have 2 men on. So after getting the first out, Granger's been a little shaky, a walk and hit batsman, and now have to face the left-handed Elrod Hendricks, the tying run at first. 231 against the lefty, but he gets him to pop it up. And Perez into foul ground, halfway between the left field line and the dugout, makes the catch, and that's a big second out. And that'll leave it all up to Davy Johnson here for the Orioles in the top of the ninth. 2 outs, 2 on, 2 runs down, and Granger delivers to Davy Johnson. 484 against a righty, and that's skied in the air to center field. Tolan takes 4 or 5 steps to his left, settles under it, and makes the catch to retire the Orioles, who get no runs on no hits, and they leave 2, and that's the end of Game 1 of the 1970 World Series here at Riverfront Stadium, as the Reds win by a score of 2-0. The Reds get 2 runs on 6 hits, and they make no errors. The Orioles held to no runs on 4 hits and no errors. The winning pitcher is Gary Nolan. The losing pitcher is Jim Palmer. And the Reds take a 1-0 lead in the series on a masterful shutout performance by the Cincinnati pitching staff. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we will see you later.